to the Festival
of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. The light that pierced through my darkness caused all of my walls to fall and crumble to the ground. All those safeguards that I built around myself to protect my heart, to protect my mind, to protect myself from the snares around me, came crumbling down in a beautiful way. Things were exposed in my life around the time of my conversion to Christianity, where my heart was vulnerable and my life transparent before the world as I transitioned from darkness to light. But that is not a darkness that I thought I would, that when I started the journey, I would be walking into. That's not somewhere that I wanted to go. But nonetheless, once I got there, it's all I knew. And at first, when his light, the Christ light, shone into my darkness, I didn't comprehend it, but yeah, I did. Now that Bible verse from John chapter 1, where light shining in the darkness, is about the angels that follow Satan that have bound the souls of men and led them into deception and darkness. It confounded the wise, meaning my testimony made no sense to the average person, but I was set apart. My story was set apart, and I never quite found one similar to it. Now I relate to other people. I relate to other Christians who have exited even the occult. I know a couple. But being able to see through spiritual eyes what is into the spiritual realm, as I'm able to, I was able to see the battle for the souls of mankind, for my soul, for your soul. I had that gift of sight, and so my heart was more invested in those things, because yeah, I never chose that life, never sought after it, but I found myself in that place, in that pit of despair, in the strongholds I built to protect myself, and in the places where the enemy hold on, I have a question. It was Florine. Hi, Florine. So I was in that place, in that darkness, not even really knowing how I got there. Yet I do know how I got there. I didn't know who I was. I always felt like there was a purpose for my life. Always felt like I had a destiny that was beyond comprehension, right? And which is true to a degree, but it's not about me. It's about Jesus. But the secret society that I was involved in fed on my insecurities. They fed on the lies that the world fed me, that I wasn't good enough. That everybody I meet will abandon me, will reject me, and they fed on the wounds of my soul, and they inhabited those wounds, and that wound became infected. Now, in Christian circles, we call that a stronghold. Now, a stronghold basically it's a traumatic event from your past that you had built a house in, that you reside in. It's that one thing that when somebody does something that brings that memory to surface, you retreat and try to distance yourself from this situation. And your fight or flight reflexes kick in. And you either want to fight, it doesn't always have to be physical, but most of the most of the time it's not physical. But if you don't want to fight, you want to hide. You want to hide from that pain. And what's really happening is you're running from that wound instead of working to heal that wound. Now, that wound is the only way that can actually be healed is through Jesus doing the work in your heart through the Holy Spirit. I think I have a question. 1 second. Okay, Fergo713 asked if I have any other books and to tell you guys more about them. Yes. Yeah, actually, I do want to go there. I do have another book, a book of poetry, and I actually want to read you guys a poem. But yeah, we'll get there in a minute. Now, about 2 years about 2 years leading up to my salvation and up to me really putting my faith in Jesus, all these truths began to surface about everything the occult was doing. And during that time, I wrote a lot of poetry because I was dealing with things that I couldn't explain. Something was happening in my heart region, and my mind began to question things and asking why things were a certain way, and I began questioning the motives of those who who drafted me into the occult, right? And I wrote a lot of poetry because it was the only way I could really work through those emotions. And poetry became an outlet to me. I love poetry, absolutely love it. It is my passion. It is something that I am, it's something that I got really good at, but it's also something that gives me a voice where I felt like I was voiceless, where I had no say in anything that happened in my life. It's gave me a direction to go with my wounds so that I could work with the Lord to heal those wounds. And through my poetry, God actually showed me some things that I needed to work on, some wounds that He wanted to heal, and some strongholds, those infested wounds, where the enemy, where Satan uses to really keep us bound to a life of bondage, to addiction, to depression, to oppression, to stress, bound to everything that ails you and keeps you away from your purpose, and to keep you in repetitive cycles. But yeah, so those strongholds were being exposed, and God wanted to heal them around the time of my conversion. But 2 years leading up to that, I started really questioning the way things worked. And I wrote poetry, and I didn't know this until after the fact, until after I started my walk with God. But I later, immediately after my conversion, my salvation, I was led by the Lord to read my book of poetry that I wrote. And all throughout the book of poetry, I wasn't only questioning things, but I was revealing things. I was talking about things that were happening that I did not know about, things that the enemy was doing. And that's a sign of a prophetic calling. But anyway, yeah, God was whispering in my ear, and He was telling me these things. He was calling me forth out of the darkness and into His light. I didn't know it. All I knew is I have all these emotions. What can I do with them? I wanted to take my own life, but I didn't have the courage, or I was too brave not to. I don't know which one, honestly. But those things came out of my poetry, and poetry became like my wife. Like I love poetry like that much. It's like a commitment to me, to like I have to write. It's just a passion. It's something I'm very zealous about. And during that time, I actually wrote this book, Darkness Before the Dawn. And at the bottom of the book is a quote, and yes, I wrote it. It's my quote. When the sun sets and I'm left to face my darkest hour, even my shadow leaves my side. I'll repeat that for those who didn't quite catch that. When the sun sets and I am left to face my darkest hour, even my shadow leaves my side. And that was played through. Those who claim to love me have abandoned me when I found Jesus, but it was the best decision of my entire life, and one I would never, ever regret. Okay. So Nikki asked what made me start writing this book. Now, concerning the Darkness Before the Dawn, yeah, I was going, my ex-girlfriend, who I was dating off and on, throughout this season of my life, she's one of the ones main players that led me into the occult. She was practiced sorcery. She was a very, well, you read about her in my novel. I don't want to talk bad about her because I don't believe that accomplishes anything. But she didn't treat me. She lied to me and manipulated me and really bent the truth so much that it literally like messed up my mind, and I needed help. Like my mind was fractured, and I was trying to mend it through poetry. And the Lord really enabled the truth to be exposed through the poetry. But yeah, so I have 6 chapters in it, and each one's about a different fraction of my life. The first one is falling in and out of love, mostly with Scarlet Stone, in my novel From Darkness to Light. The second chapter is suicide letters. That's self-explanatory. The first poem I ever wrote, just a fun fact, the first poem I ever wrote was a suicide letter. So that should show you the immense pain that I was feeling during that time. The third chapter is See You in Heaven, based on those who I've lost in this season, which was a lot. Fourth chapter is Forgive Me, Father, which I was calling out to God and I had no idea. Chapter 5 is Path of Life, and chapter 6 is Darkest Before Dawn. Path of Life and Darkest Before Dawn, chapters 5 and 6 go hand in hand. They kind of lead one into the other. It's about being in a hopeless situation and still being able to see the dawn and seeing the light in the darkness, despite not being able to see any stars in the sky. I have another question. Circler1296 says, tell us what were the experiences that led you to see the light? The spiritual battle was heavy. I was dealing with all these conflicted voices that were telling me different things. Like the occult was telling me that they were the way, then I would never accomplish anything apart from them. And then God was telling me, child, I love you. No matter what you've done, come home. I love you, and I have a purpose for your life where you did not have to sacrifice your own life to obtain. And well, that's we do have to lay down our lives and pick up our cross and follow Him, but that's different from the occult version of laying down your life. Way different. But I want to read you guys a poem real quick, to kind of show you the immense pain that I was feeling during this season of my life. And my homework for you, the viewer, is to listen to me. Listen to the lines that I'm reading or reciting, and pick out the key things in those lines that are revealing the what I was going through, like what I said about the truth coming to light and me speaking of things beyond my understanding. And I want to know in the comment section what stands out to you. So I'm going to be reading my one of my favorite poems, Dark Lonely Road. Okay. Drink some water first. Okay. It's called Dark Lonely Road. Only a fool believes a friend when they say to bleed for them and be there until the very end. Beaten, abused, betrayed, and left for dead. Walking astray in a wasteland of my own filth. Fighting to live another day. Finding strength in my will to find an alternative way to heal the wounds I conceal. I learned to live from my mistakes. I run when others yield. I'm doing whatever it takes to battle through life's battlefield. Without sight, I learn to fight. My spirit can never be killed. I'm the entity of the light that lights my way. To rest assured of my restless nights and pray they give me clarity to put an end to this endless fight. I've walked through the darkest of sorrows, amongst the demons of the shadows, without a promise of tomorrow. In this sorrow, I refuse to wallow. My heart is what I follow. I must repair my hollow heart. I will show no fear as it falls apart. I will stand bold as I play my part. I walk a lonely road, guided by the dying stars. This road is paved in gold, but this road is dark. I'm walking it alone because life is hard and I've always been on my own. But I've come too far to let your words break my bones. Swing your fists and throw your stones. My mental walls will remain thick. My mind is not an empty home. Verbal threats remain empty. My wisdom is grown, so they will never break me, even when I'm broken. I will exceed my expectations. I will forever be outspoken. You're only an hallucination. Were you ever really there? Scratch that. I don't need your explanations. I pulled the knife from my own bag, and the wound bled tears that dried as it hit the road. The pain has cleared. My heart is sewn. I don't need you here. I walk alone amongst the. Sorry. The pain has cleared, my heart is sewn. I don't need you here. I walk alone amongst a road paved in fool's gold, but I no longer care that I'm on my own. I've created a dream out of nightmares. And if one thing is clear, it's that I have found clarity in the shell that I wear. I'd rather be alone for all eternity than to believe the end is near. Because a friend became an enemy when my prayers were left unanswered. I don't need you to walk alongside of me to know where this road may lead. Because when I'm left to face my darkest hour, even my shadow fears to walk beside me. Yeah. I don't need you to walk alongside of me to know where this road may lead. Because when I'm left to face my darkest hour, even my shadow fears to walk beside me. That's truly how I felt. I felt abandoned even by myself. I felt like I turned my back on everything that I felt originally that I was deserving to receive. And I dishonored my own soul. Okay, Nikki, oh no, Faircar804 asked, did you encounter any roadblocks during the writing process? Roadblock is very common for for any writer. For me, poetry, yeah, there were times throughout my writing history where I've had immense roadblocks. I stopped writing for a year one time, but during this process, before I get there, when you are going through something, when that is intense, when you are going through the fires of purging, when you are walking through waters that you believe will sweep over you and wash you away, when you are pressed against a corner and spears are being thrown at you and there is no way to escape, it is in those moments that the dam of writer's block is taken away. Pain births passion. And I started writing in the darkest moments of my life. And when I deal with writer's block, every time I go through something, that writer's block, that dam is broken. And because I had to write, it's my survival. That's how I view it. I view it as my therapy, my counseling. I view it as God speaking to me through the gift He gave me. Make no mistake, no matter how talented you are or untalented, what have you, no matter what level of talent you have, that gift was given by God. It was a gift. And originally, its original intent was to glorify His name, which I'm doing in my latest book, not only my novel, but also my next book of poetry will really have an emphasis in the light of hope that I found. And I do have the title for my next book of poetry, but I don't feel like I should release it yet. Maybe the next festival will probably be out, probably be displayed. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so I'm gonna ask for a question or made a comment. Virgo1014 says, I'm kind of surprised that you did hip hop in the past and that transitioned to poetry and then wrote a book. I bet your experience with hip hop helped you with poetry. Yes, actually, yes. You're dead on. I began with hip hop when I was 13. I was horrible. I did not know what I was doing at all. Obviously, nobody who first starts a thing ever knows what they're doing. But it is through failing that we really learn how to get good at something. It is through exercising that gift that it becomes stronger. Now, up until this point, up until the year I wrote my poetry, I did write one or two before, but it was not the same. But up until that point, I was writing about just random things and like short stories in rhyme formation. But when the year I wrote my book of poetry, Darkness Before the Dawn, during that time, it began to transition more into poetry than hip hop, because I'm originally just a writer and I love to write, and that transitioned over because again, it was survival for me, but also I took that hip hop bar system and I grafted it into poetry. So if you read my poetry, it sounds like a song. I used to recite my poetry at my cousin's house. There was actually a house rule that I could not come into the house if I did not have at least 3 poems to recite to them. And they were a great inspiration in pushing me to publish my poetry. So shout out to them. My aunt Chris Morgan, my mom Susan Lucas, my cousins Ray Michael and Mike C. Schultz. Shout out to them. But yeah, so I grafted that in and I transitioned to poetry, and I've always been good at writing stories. That was a natural talent I've had from high school. I actually brought up my GPA for English from a 30%, overall first quarter of the school was 30%, 34%. By the end of the school year, I brought the GPA up to an A, to a 94%, I believe. It was drastically different because the only thing it was my stories. My stories were what caused that to skyrocket. I always get 100%, A+ every time. Maybe misspelled a word once or twice and had a 97 or something. But that was natural talent. But my poetry, actually, I write in creative style format when it comes to writing novels. So I actually draft my poetry into my literature, my novels. So when you read my novel, you'll see poetry as well. And in the story, and it's like naturally rhymes sometimes, and it's not even or it sounds poetic, and it's not rhyming, but it sounds poetic. And so it really cross-pollinates each other. Now, we're out of time. Thank you all for tuning in. You can purchase both of my books on Amazon.com or go to my author website, charlesgatesjr.com/books. You can look me up on Facebook and Instagram for both of them. For Charles, for Facebook, you can look me up at, you can either put in a search bar at Charles Gates Jr. or www.facebook.com//Charles Gates Jr., all lowercase. And my URLs, they'll always be lowercase. My full name, basically, is what that is. So Instagram, again, Instagram.com//Charles Gates Jr. Or yeah, my tag is @Charles Gates Jr., all lowercase. And if you go to my website, I have both my Amazon links in there, or there it's also in my author booth, I believe. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. God bless you. Be blessed. Stay blessed. In Jesus' name. Amen.